Welcome to another informative episode of Alberta Doctors Digest, brought to you by the Alberta Medical Association. You've tuned in to one of the many stories from our online publication at add.albertadoctors.org. We're the flagship source of information and opinion of the Alberta Medical Association, with a mission of advocating for and supporting Alberta physicians, strengthening their leadership in the provision of sustainable quality care. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Alberta Doctors Digest podcast, brought to you by the Alberta Medical Association. As always, I'm your host, Editor-in-Chief, Marvin Polis. For this episode, I'm here to continue our series about the Physician and Family Support Program, otherwise known as the PFSP. I recently did some remote interviews with 6 of the assessment physicians from the PFSP. These assessment physicians support the assistance line, where callers can speak with an assessment physician after they do a brief intake with a third-party service provider. The assessment physicians do not treat physicians directly. They offer their colleagues peer support, helping the caller to determine what next steps look like, for instance, perhaps getting them set up with a therapist where appropriate. For these interviews, I engaged 6 of the assessment physicians to answer 5 questions about being a peer supporter. They represented a very nice cross-section of assessment physicians from retired, rural, urban, different specialties, and length of time with the PFSP. For my first question, I asked, what does being a PFSP assessment physician mean to you personally, and why is it important to you? Here's Dr. Lionel Dibden, followed by Dr. Curtis Boyington, Dr. Jody Usman, and finally Dr. Shirley Samuel Haynes.
Being an assessment physician with the PFSP has given me an opportunity to remain connected to a wonderful group of colleagues and has allowed me to retain a connection to the profession since my retirement from clinical practice. It really is a privilege to be part of an exemplary physician health program created, maintained, and managed within the AMA and delivered by a truly marvelous team at Unify Consulting. I feel fortunate at this time in my life to be able to use and in fact expand my skills, which I relied on as a clinician, by engaging with colleagues and their family members on the support line.
My family and I have benefited from the PFSP line in the past, and I thought it would be something I'd be interested in, hopefully helpful at doing. Supporting each other as colleagues is hugely important, and then this is just a more formal way to do it. In other parts of my work life, I worked in occupational health and safety, which really the driving force behind that is protecting staff in the workplace from harmful exposures. And this seems like really a natural connection to looking out for staff, specifically students, residents, and my colleagues.
Alberta Docs, because we've been through such massive change and uncertainty, we've seen many docs retire or even leave the province in this kind of climate. For me, focusing on what I can do and providing some personal support, connecting docs with, other further care, it just feels like the most meaningful way that I can give back and potentially maybe help sustain docs in their practices in the province.
Helping doctors receive the support they deserve so that they provide the excellent patient care they want to provide is my small act of hopeful resistance against the strange system.
Next up, I asked this. Since starting as an assessment physician, what's one unexpected caller pattern or need you've noticed? And how did it change the way you offer support? Here's Dr. Marley van der Merwe, followed by Dr. Curtis Boyington, Dr. Shirley Samuel Haynes, and then finally, Dr. Dale McDermott.
I've been very surprised by how meaningful peer-to-peer support can be. We certainly offer resources and make suggestions about who else could be brought in for support for our callers. But often they want to know what you have personally experienced and what you might have done in a similar situation with similar difficulties. It took me a while to learn how to trust myself and my reflections on my experiences enough to meet the callers in this vulnerable space and to help them to feel that someone else understands their position and is willing to walk alongside them for a while as they try and navigate their way through their current situation.
So I've been in this role for a short period of time. So my range of experience isn't huge, but I would say the one striking color pattern has been a predominance of relationship issues, which makes sense. I mean, you spend so much time working hard and training hard to be really good at a high stress profession. And sometimes the relationship aspects of things can take a backside in terms of during training, and that trend can continue into your work life, but also it can be really challenging when you have high stress in your work life, and then equally or more high stress situations at home. And so when both of those things are occurring, it really makes it difficult and important to have support. I would say I don't know that it's really changed how I offer support, but it's made me cognizant of, asking the questions when a caller calls, like how are other aspects of your life? How are things at home? Because sometimes there's a lot going on, and the reason a caller may have called is only part of what's really stressing them out.
A few unexpected patterns I've noticed include medical students, residents, and early career physicians seem more open to accessing services and resources before issues become overwhelming. I admire that proactive act. It has helped me be more attuned to my own well-being because of them. Also, because I'm accustomed to people asking for help when they are overwhelmed, I have felt the need to repeat my questions, mostly to reassure myself that their call is a proactive act instead of a reactive act. The second thing I have observed is that some early career physicians are calling with signs and symptoms of burnout. Some of them feel alone in their workplace and are reluctant to ask for help as they're starting their career. With these calls, I offer to call them back as well as connect them with a suitable therapist. The third unexpected pattern I have noticed is that the work is reminding me that many of us are working at risk state. Younger colleagues with less experience feeling overwhelmed with the demands of the role, and older colleagues growing accustomed to working in a strained environment that denies them time for reflection and restoration for growth. That shared state reminds me of our humanity as doctors. Hopefully, doctors that call feel less alone after talking to us APs, and that shared experience improves their well-being.
Well, I'm thinking now of some conversations that I've had with senior physicians who might be facing issues in life that are not related directly to practice, are not related to raising a family, might have more to do with health, might have more to do with worries about adult family members. And what I've appreciated about that is the chance to really sit together as people that have had a lot of experience and to see them supported at that stage of their lives.
For my third question, I asked, how have you seen the peer support you've been able to provide on the assistance line help others? Here are Doctors Ousmane, Dibden, Van der Merwe, and McDermott.
At the end of a call, clients will often thank me for listening to them and share that they feel better after talking about it even. Sometimes they haven't shared the issue with anyone else, and they have a clear understanding of their problem sometimes than what they had prior to the call. I find sometimes we can be so critical of ourselves as physicians that I wonder whether callers almost expect to get a similar reception when they're speaking with another physician about these vulnerabilities and struggles. And so what I see and hear from them is often great relief to be able to express it and be met with some warmth and understanding, and hopefully increased self-compassion.
There are some calls, of course, during which it is very evident that the opportunity to speak to me has provided relief. At these times, I can almost feel the caller breathing more easily. There is one moment in most calls, though, when clients express their thanks, and that is when I acknowledge to them that it is difficult to make these calls, and I commend you for making the call. And that mostly has a profound impact on the caller.
It's challenging because we don't have longitudinal contact with our clients to really fully evaluate the impact that we might be making. But I feel like I have achieved my goal when the caller can feel like they're able to take a mental breath or see a possible way forward by the time we finished our call. My hope is that in creating this mental space, this will provide the callers with the opportunity to reframe their situation and feel ready to take the next step in their journey.
What I've appreciated is being able to hear from people that they're coming to a new way of understanding themselves. They may have not have thought of themselves in the context that the conversation provides. Often that involves helping them see themselves developmentally as they've grown through their lives. And I believe that it often allows them to see themselves with more compassion. So that's rewarding.
Moving along to my fourth question, I asked, how do you care for your own wellness while offering peer support as a PFSP assessment physician? Here are Doctors McDermott, Boyington, Ousmane, Samuel Haynes, Van der Merwe, and Dibden.
When I'm on call, I usually don't have clinical responsibilities. So in that way, it's a break, and I get to sit in my office, and often my little black dog will be beside me helping. And so it's a very relaxed environment for me. And then when I have time between calls, often I can read or study, or sometimes I have learning projects. So it really is a week that I look forward to each time. I really like that I can change up my work in this way.
Really caring for my own wellness. Everybody has, the things that help them manage stress in their lives. For me, exercise outdoors, and then just really spending quality time, meaningful time with my family in particular, watching a movie together or playing a game together or going on a trip, quality time with my friends away from work. And then I would say some healthy habits that I've instituted over time would be really minimizing my exposure to social media, trying to be more present in the now.
When I'm on call for PFSP, I'm not doing my other clinical work at all. So that in itself is a little bit of a break, and I get to wear a bit of a different hat in being a peer supporter. So I appreciate that. It's a bit of a break, and it feels nice. And then I try to just prioritize all the things that you'd probably hope we do, like, getting enough sleep and trying to eat well, walking my dog, and trying to get to my dance classes and get to the gym for a swim, and just really enjoy being home, and my dog enjoying me being home for the whole week is really what helps me, I think, during those weeks.
While I'm on PFSP shift, I find I exercise more. I exercise to relax and feel more alert. I also like going outside, even when it's cold. I like doing the square breathing more often and being mindful of the environment.
We're really lucky in this team as we've got a lot of supports built into our PFSP system. And so I simply lean on my support team. I'm fortunate to work with a wonderful group of physicians at the PFSP who are always there to offer advice and guidance. And we have regular check-in meetings, and this helps us all to stay in tune with each other and share in some of the difficulties that we all could be experiencing.
I'm very fortunate to have a supportive wife, enough activities and exercise to keep me engaged, and the anticipation of a new puppy coming into our home.
Finally, here's the last question in the series. Which resources, habits, or practices would you recommend to physicians seeking support, and why those? Here are Doctors Dibden, Van der Merwe, Boyington, Ousmane, McDermott, and then Dr. Samuel Haynes.
I would encourage physicians to consider a call to the PFSP as a part of their personal support resource kit, and not as an act of desperation. More than that, I would urge physicians to consider doing what they tell their patients to do, to recognize their own limitations, and to strive to build a network of supportive colleagues in their workplace. The need to be connected to supportive family and friends is obvious, as is the maintenance of interests and activities outside of the workplace. Obvious maybe, but not necessarily easily done.
Definitely think there's no one-size-fits-all solution. First of all, really extend empathy towards yourself and allow yourself to seek help if you need it. At one time or another, most of us will need the help of our colleagues and other supports to deal with a career that can claim a high personal costs. Even after an acute crisis has passed, having contact with a regular therapist on a longitudinal basis can really make a big difference in mitigating some of the day-to-day stresses that our work exposes us to. And I would highly recommend this to all physicians.
The habit that I think is crucial is realizing when you need help and having the courage to reach out for it, whether that's with the physician family support program, whether it's calling the CMPA, whether it's talking to a colleague that you trust. We're taught to be quite stoic in our training. We're taught to help others, but we're not as well trained in helping ourselves. And so that step, asking for help can be a hard one, can have a lot of stress with it, but it's such an important step. So I would say that that's a key habit that should be applauded when people, seek support and help.
As I go on in my career, I think I appreciate how the study of medicine, the practice of medicine is such a serious pursuit and can take up so much of our time that it's really easy to lose sight of just the value of not just, of course, our relationships, but the value of play in our lives and maybe art or even beauty just in day-to-day things, and the value of those things in being truly well and feeling truly well. I would encourage docs that are seeking support from us to kind of think about maybe past experiences or practices that they've done that have stood out to them as, really joyful times or times that they, get a real sort of boost in energy or vitality, and think about how they could bring some of that back into their lives now, whether it's playing a sport or spending more time outside, creating things, listening to music, playing music, traveling, religious practices. There's so many things that can contribute. So that's what I would really suggest to callers wondering, what they can do.
Sometimes we are quite perfectionistic, and often when I'm talking to a colleague, it's because things are not going well. So one of the things that is often recommended is the self-compassion guided exercises that are on the self-compassion website. Sometimes I recommend mindfulness exercises found in books like Deeper Mindfulness.
Some research-based practices that support physician health include sleeping well, eating well, exercising regularly, reduce social media time, and reduce alcohol intake. Another interesting research finding is that when physicians take time to connect with people that are important to them on a regular basis, their sense of burnout decreases. I would encourage every physician to have a family physician. That is your gateway to access resources to keep yourself healthy. I think it's good to know your CPSA standards of practice and read some of the articles about how to work in a strained system from the CMPA. There is also a module from the University of Calgary about professionalism that highlights physician health and being part of a system that works for the provider as well as the user. Those resources are both reassuring and humbling.
And that's it for our podcast episode about PFSP assessment physicians. I hope you found it as insightful listening to them as I did interviewing them. Just a reminder that the Alberta Doctors Digest podcast is brought to you by the Alberta Medical Association. This has been one of the many stories from the current issue of our online publication. You can read the entire publication at add.albertadoctors.org. See you next time.